everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Disgustingly Resilient podcast. And today's episode, we're going to be doing a tactics deep dive on how to use our very own primarch, the big stinky Mothman himself, Mr. Mortarion. Before we get into it, if you do enjoy the content on the channel, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. If you really enjoy the content, consider becoming a Plague Marine member. Hit the join button below. It's $2.99 a month, less than a coffee, and you get access to our Discord, our giveaways, of which we have a very special giveaways on at the moment. We've got three giveaways technically. One is for a pack of the GW dice set, and the other one is for a nice, lovely one of the limited edition, illustrated and annotated Lords of Silence books. So that is up for giveaway right now on Discord. So if you watch this before I think it's the 2nd of September, those are currently live and you can get involved in that. But anyway, enough about that nonsense. Let's crack into this tactical deep dive. So Mortarion himself. Let's quickly go over it. I'm going to assume you all are capable of reading Mortarion's stat line. I hope that's a key skill required for this game. So, toughness 12, 2-up save, 4-up invulnerable, and a 5-up feel no pain. He's a chunky monkey. He's got 16 wounds as well. This guy is pretty tough to kill. Toughness 12 is now quite a lot rarer in the game. Knights used to be toughness 12, they're now T11, apart from the Castellan variants. So toughness 12 is normally your land raiders, like the Mortarion, the Hecaton land fortress. It is a very big breakpoint. There's a lot of, well, not only is there a lot of strength like 10 weaponry in the game, melters are like strength 9, so you're above that. There's a lot of strength 6 melee in the game, so you actually now double that out as well. And anything like Power Fist at strength 8, or in Blood Angels and World Eaters, who all get +2 strength, they go to 10, still not enough. Toughness 12 is a very good breakpoint to be at in terms of the game. Last cannons are strength 12, so they're going to be with you on 4s rather than 3s they would normally. So basically, only outside the very biggest guns in the game are you going to get wounded on 3s, and pretty much nothing outside of, like, I don't know, a Warlord Titan, for example, is going to wound you on a 2. So that's obviously a really good defensive profile to have. Now on top of that, you've obviously got your 2-up save, your 4-up invulnerable. Your 2-up save is very easy to keep at a 2-up save, ignoring an AP, because again, if a single part of Mortarion is behind any form of ruin or out of line of sight, so again, the wingtip, the tip of his scythe, one of the little stupid nurglings that are on his base, on his chains, they all count as being behind cover, so it's very easy to have Mortarion always in cover. So you basically have a 1-up save, which is obviously fantastic to have, really good. Now on top of that, he is movement 10, he's also on a circular base as a monster, which means he does not pay to pivot. So when you pivot to hide your wings or to get angles with your wings, you do not have to pay 2 inches movement for that. So always bear that in mind. You are free to rotate Mortarion as much as you wish at the start of a move, at the end of the move, midway through the move, it doesn't matter. You can rotate to your heart's content, which is very good. He's also got fly, which means you can't scream out as easily. You can move over enemy models, you can fall back over enemy models, you can move over your own vehicles as well and your own monsters as well. So really good just to have that nice little fly keyword. Does open you up a little bit to some anti-fly keywords in the game, but they're not super common. The most common one being like the Helverines and Imperial Knights, who get anti-fly 2-up, which is a bit annoying. But again, you should be okay because you'll have a 2-up save with a cover and those guns are AP 1, so you'll be saving on 2, so not the big deal. He's also going to come alongside with a monster keyword. Again, just be aware of any anti-monster keywords out there. They're sort of getting more prevalent. But again, monster keyword does give you certain things, certain benefits, such as being able to shoot whilst in combat, which is nice. You're not going to get just tied up and locked there. But it also means you do have to move around buildings. So a bit more of a negative there. You can't just go through buildings as if you were infantry. So moving Mortarion is going to be very important to practice his movement and get used to it. And then he also comes in with Deep Strike. Deep Strike is a nice to have, not an always use. A lot of the times people automatically see Deep Strike and go, oh, must be in Deep Strike. You don't have to. Very much so that with Mortarion, you're most of the time going to deploy him on the board from the rip. You don't really want to use Deep Strike unless it's very specific for the matchup or you have a very good plan to use the Deep Strike. Deep Strike does mean, obviously, that because you can go in reserves, you can rapid ingress this bad boy, which is, again, pretty impressive to have a primarch just appear anywhere, move 10 and charge something. So it is a tool in the toolbox to have. On top of this, he's also leadership 5, which is, you know, you don't ignore your battle shock anymore, so it's good to have good leadership, so 5 is great. He's also 6 OC, which is actually relevant. Lots of 5-man squads that are 1 OC each in the game means that one squad alone is not going to be able to out OC Mortarion. So if someone's got, you know, a 5 squad of Howling Banshees, they can't just walk onto the objective next to Mortarion and automatically take it off him. Instead, they'll either have to commit a second squad or, well, try and kill Mortarion, which your 5 Howling Banshees, like, good luck with that one. He also has the grenade keyword, which is good to have. Again, having the grenade stratagem on demand is really good, so you can chuck some grenades, deal some mortal wounds, which on top of one of his other abilities that deals mortal wounds, just means you have quite a lot of mortal wound output built into this model, which is really good to have. But he also has the psychic keyword. This is genuinely just awful. Like, the psychic keyword is like probably the worst keyword in the game. Not because it's like super relevant and going to get you killed all the time, but there's very little benefits for being a Psyker, but there's a fair few units in the game that get stupid bonuses like anti-Psyker 2+. And now, again, it's niche. You don't come against it so much because, well, it turns out a lot of people don't put anti-Psyker in the list because, you know, you bring an army with a load of anti-Psyker tech, and then you pair them to Tau, who have literally 0 Psykers, and you're like, cool, I just wasted all these points. So it's not super common, but there is the weird instance where you do come against something like anti-Psyker, and you know it hurts. I have been against Space Wolves Hounds of Morkai, who have anti-Psyker like 3-up with dev wounds at 1 damage, and they had like 50 attacks and just basically could have one-shot Mortarion at any point. That's a very strange thing to play around, because those anti-wounds will count as 6s for dev wounds. So just bear in mind, you do have the psychic keyword, not always the greatest thing. And on top of the last thing, he has Deadly Demise D6. So when he goes down, if you roll a 6, he's going to explode for D6 mortal wounds to everything within 6 inches. That is potentially a lot of damage, so can potentially be drastically good or bad. If you're in the middle of your opponent's lines and you explode and deal D6 mortal wounds to everything nearby, excellent. If you die in your own lines and roll a D6 and you explode on all your own guys, that's not so excellent. So again, just be aware he does explode quite hard if he does roll that 6. So let's have a quick look at his ranged output and his melee output. Very quick to note, even though Lantern is a pistol, it is a monstrous model, which means you are allowed to ignore the rule that says you can only shoot pistols or non-pistols. Monsters are exempt from this. They can shoot both pistol and his psychic attack at the same time. The pistol keyword does let you shoot it in close combat without suffering a -1 to hit, but do bear in mind his psychic attack has the blast keyword, which means you will not be able to fire that into a combat that is going on, but you are still able to shoot it out of combat at something that is not engaged in combat. Now, the Lantern itself, it's a bit of a casino cannon. You kind of just shoot it for the memes, really. You shoot the gun, maybe you kill like an elite model, just 3 damage, cool. Maybe you kill a Terminator. Sometimes you roll the 6, and then you can pop off and you get 4 hits, and then you kill like 3 Terminators, and you're like, cool, like that happened. It's not, you know, it's not something you bank on happening, but it is there, and when it does happen, it can sometimes be really helpful. Now, Rotwind actually is a lot more consistent. It's a good little chaff killer. It's got the blast on there. It's got D6 plus 3 shots. So if you shoot at 10 guardsmen, you can average look about 9 shots out of it. Hitting on 2s, wounded on 2s. If you're in contagion, it's going to be AP3 with -1 save. Really, really nice. Dev wounds and lethal on it are a bit counterproductive. Lethal hits obviously cannot proc devastating wounds because they skip the wound roll. But sometimes you'll roll a couple of 6s on the dev wounds and you'll chip 3 damage off a tank here or there. So honestly, just fire it at something. It's not the biggest deal. These now have both increased their range to 24, which makes them a lot easier to use as well. They're decent little shooting output, Mortarion. People often underestimate how much you can actually shoot. Sometimes you'll come out, chuck a grenade at something, shoot it with a lantern, shoot a Rotwind, and you've actually done, like, you know, if it's a tank, for example, maybe, you know, you do have 3 mortal wounds off the grenade. Maybe you walked up to them and his ability did another 2 mortal wounds, so there's 5 damage there. Rotwind maybe chipped like 2 or 3 damage off, there's 7 to 8 damage there. And if the lantern connects, that could put it up another 3 to 10, 11 damage. So like, at that point, like, not a joke anymore, like genuinely putting pain on something. So make sure you make use of the ranged weapons. They are pretty damn good. Now, melee, however, is obviously where he is shining the most. He comes with 2 profiles. The strike profile comes in a pitiful 5 attacks, unfortunately. Not many attacks there, but they are strength 14, AP3/4 in -1 save, contagion, D6 plus 1 damage each with devastating wounds. Now, the problem is Mortarion has no rerolls, so if you drop a single hit roll or in a single wound roll, you're actually only putting 3 saves on something, and you could potentially drop even more if you're wounded on 3s against a target, for example. And then you're in trouble town. You don't want to be in that position. It's not great. Obviously, the lethal on these also cancels out the possibility to get a dev, so it's a bit counterintuitive. Strike is kind of only ever going to be used against something that is like a land raider. So, you know, it's got a really high toughness. It's just got a really good save, but it has no invulnerable, and you just need to try and chunk it. So maybe you get 3 through, and hopefully deal a bunch of damage to it. Dev Runes, don't rely on them. You don't have enough attacks to rely on them. If it happens, great, happy days. If it doesn't happen, like, expect it not to happen. When I look at the profile, I look at it as if it doesn't have Dev Runes, because, again, you don't have enough to make it reliable. But if it ever comes down to a situation where an opponent's like a 2-up invulnerable or something, and the high toughness, I know this is not a real unit, but if it did, maybe then you can fish for the dev. Well, roll for the dev. You can't fish. There's no way to fish. But yeah, as an example. Now, the sweep, however, is where the sauce is. The sweep comes in at tripling his attacks to 15 attacks. Not only that, it picks up sustained hits in exchange for the dev wounds. So you have 15 attacks, sustained and lethal. So the average dice say you'll get 15 hits, because you should roll on average as many 6s as you do 1s, so they should cancel each other out. And these are going to be wounding to the likes of Marines or even Terminators, because they go -1 toughness for being near. They go from T5 to 4 on 2s. AP2/3 depending on contagion, and a flat 2 damage each. This really puts the pain out onto infantry, allows you to absolutely mulch through that. You even can kill vehicles with this. It's, you know, Rhino goes down to T8 when you're near it, so you wounded it on 4s. You're going to pick up a few lethals, you're going to get sustained, so maybe you get like 3 lethals and you got 12 hits. You wound it 4 times because you wounded it on 4s and you got 6 of them. There's still enough 8. It's got to make 8 saves at -3 in -1 save contagion. So it has 8 6-ups to make. It's probably going to die at that point. So it's still reliable for killing weaker vehicles like that. I would obviously go with a strike against like massively tough vehicles, but mainly Mortarion wants to be hunting down like, you know, Marine equivalents, Terminator equivalents, any elite sort of infantry. He can go and fight some of the big monsters in the game, but again, the strike is a little bit unreliable. He's much better at just being a massive like reaper of death and just carving through infantry like mad. So just bear that in mind when you take Mortarion into a fight. Sometimes the strike, especially into 4-up invulnerables, just bounces and you're like, well, shit. But the sweep with the 15 attacks sus lethal really helps bring him to like a better level of average output. Literally 90% of the time, you should always be sweeping. If it's T9 or below, the maths pretty much always says sweep, unless it's like a -1 damage effect. Then consider what, you know, obviously be reactive. Consider what's going on. If they got -1 damage up, you can then obviously, you know, go for the strikes instead if you want to just try and kill a few models. But again, it really does depend what you're swinging into. Just use your best judgment you can to make the right decision. And if you don't want, you want the actual maths on it all, you can go check Zito's channel, just literally called Zito. He does, and also General Janice as well. They've done math breakdowns on this. If you want an actual mathematical answer, but honestly, gut feeling, go with it. 90% of the time, those sweep is going to be better. So, Mortarion's abilities, this is the real interesting thing about Mortarion now. So, very quickly, he has a 6-inch aura that you roll a dice on a 3-up or +1 if they're in contagion range. And again, because they've got to be within 6 inches for this to happen, from turn 2 onwards, it's always going to be in contagion range. So, it's going to be a 2-up pretty much all the time. Because if you're in, you know, if you're within 6 inches of your enemy on turn 1, something's gone really wrong for your opponent. So just bear in mind, it's pretty much a 6-inch aura of D3 mortals to everything nearby on a 2-up, well, every enemy nearby. Again, it's really nice, chips down stuff, especially if a massive brawl breaks out where there's multiple units in the middle of the board, all within 6 inches of Mortarion. It's at the end of your movement phase as well, so you get to move, put stuff into the aura and then roll it, which is really nice. In the command phase, it'd be a lot worse, because it's kind of like, hope stuff was already there by the time your turn rolls around, whereas now you get to proactively go and put things into contagion range. And again, just dealing a bunch of mortal wounds for free, always going to be good. Now, the real spice, though, for Mortarion is the Lord of the Death Guard rule. So this is the easiest way to look at it, is if you ever know Yu-Gi-Oh! Or anything like that, you have 3 trap cards. You have 3 magical traps. And on each player turn, both yours and their turn, you can play one of these 3 traps. You can only use it once per turn, but you can play any single one. And you only declare it when you're going to use it. So you don't have to say at the start of the turn, oh, I'm going to pick reactive move this turn and I'll reactive move at some point. No, only when the trigger happens do you say, I'm going to use Mortarion's ability. So let's have a look at them. First one is a friendly unit within 6 inches of Mortarion can reactive move 5 inches if an enemy unit finishes a move within 9 of that reacting unit. So this is really good. Reactive move is really powerful. Normally, what makes them kind of balanced is you have to roll dice, and that's how much you get to move. You know, you could roll a 1, you could roll a 6. This is always a flat 5-inch move, which means you can plan around it much better. So someone's going to walk up to me to charge me? Cool, I'll move 5 inches away. Now that charge is impossible. You want to move near me to shoot me? Well, you just moved a bit too close. Now I'm going to hop back behind this wall over here. All these kind of things. Or, oh, what's that? My opponent, you put 2 models on my objective to out-OC me and you've got nothing else to shoot me. I'll reactive move through the wall and put more models on the objective so I hold it with OC. Lots of little plays, and we'll get into them after. As we do in these videos, we do a breakdown like this, and then we do a table aiding section where I go on TTS, take you through some of the tricks that you can make use of Mortarion. So we'll see a lot more of that there, but right now, it's a nice little summary. Now, the next one is a friendly unit within 6 inches can shoot back after it has been shot. Now, interesting caveat on this one. This one, you declare as your opponent targets you. So, I have a Predator next to Mortarion. My opponent hops out with a tank and shoots my Predator. I have a choice before this shot happens, just when they tell me I'm going to shoot the Predator, to use this ability. And now, if my Predator survives being shot, my Predator can immediately shoot back. However, if the Predator unfortunately fails all his saves and explodes and dies horribly, I don't get to then shoot back, and I still have counted as using Mortarion's ability. So it's very risky to use sometimes. You basically need to make sure that you're going to have something live to make use out of that. Honestly, this is the one that you probably will see the least most use, but you will have some niche scenarios where you can get some good value out of this. Just bear in mind it's always there, but honestly, it's probably the weakest of the 3, even though it sounds really good, just because of the fact you have to survive. If it was you immediately shoot back and then die, that would be fantastic, because it'd be like, cool, you shoot my Predator, cool, you've killed it, before, like, it'd be like shoot on death almost, like before I go away, I shoot you back, and then I die. Then it'd be really good. Unfortunately, it does not work that way. And the last one is a friendly unit within 6 in the fight phase gains fight on death on a 2-up. So, just super easy. You pick a unit, you go, cool, they're going to fight on death 2-up. So even if your opponent swings and kills your entire unit, you roll dice for every model that was killed, and every 2-up, that unit then fights back. He can use this on himself as well, so if Morty goes out, kills a bunch of dudes, your opponent counter-attacks, shoots Morty a bunch, drops him low, goes for a charge to finish him off. Morty goes, I'm going to fight on death, so even though I'm going to die, I'm going to take you lot with me. Really super simple, really powerful to just have such a reliable fight on death. A 2-up is really reliable. A lot better than 4-up, which it usually is. But it's just nice to have, again, when your reactive moves aren't really that important. You know, once combat's engaged, it's all fighting going on. Just being able to have units nearby, guarantee you get value out of themselves before they die, is really, really powerful. And don't worry, we're going to get into all these in the TTS section as we go forward. This is just a quick recap. Now, there's some interesting attachments for Mortarion. Virulent Vectorum is where he sees the most play competitively. It is really, really good for him. -1 damage on Mortarion with that stat line, that profile. Magnifico. Super, super good. Not to mention, he also has Leech Spore Eruption, where you roll a dice for every wound you are missing, and every 5-up you heal a wound and deal a mortal wound to an enemy nearby. So, having Mortarion survive at 1 wound, which definitely didn't just happen at an RTT I went to, and then rolling 15 dice and healing all 6 wounds and killing an enemy like model a unit while I'm at it, and putting Mortarion back up to 7 wounds was not a happy moment for my opponent, I'll tell you that. It was very, 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 very good. So that's another great thing Virulent Vectorum brings. Also, you can auto-explode in Virulent Vectorum. So, remember that D6 bomb that we talked about before? D6 mortal wounds exploding? What if you didn't have to roll for it? You could just say, yeah, it's happening. So, my Mortarion has gone into my opponent's lines. He's, pulsed out a bunch of mortal wounds with his rule. He's then charged something. He'd, slapped a unit to death. He maybe grenaded something, shot somewhere else. Great. My opponent then comes in, counterattacks. He dies in the middle of my opponent's army. And I'm going to spend a CP on the way out. Auto-explode him and deal D6 mortal wounds to all my opponent's army that are all nearby. Really great, super awesome value. Being able to just hit 3 units or so with D6 mortal wounds can genuinely flip an entire game, because you could just pick up so much free damage from it. So good. Virulent Vectorum is also great for Mortarion because of the Demon Prince. The access to the Demon Prince, getting the Feel No Pain enhancement in there, basically makes a mini Mortarion. So a very popular combination that has been pioneered and led by Derek over at Dirtbags 40k. who's, again, if you want to learn how to play Mortarion with Demon Prince combo, go check them out, really good. They have basically been running these two together as a mini Mortarion and a big Mortarion because they have the exact same stat line: 2 up save, 4 up invulnerable, 5 up feel no pain, toughness 12, chunky as fuck, and the only difference being the Demon Prince has 6 less wounds. So really, and also he's like half the price of Mortarion though. So really, really good together. 2 very tough models, hard to your opponents deal with. One of them is giving the other reactive move, Fight on Death, and the Demon Prince is giving Mortarion, you know, free stratagem support as well. So they benefit each other really nicely. So Virulent Vectorium is fantastic. Also, sticky objectives means that Mortarion doesn't have to sit on an objective after he's claimed it. He can sit on the middle. Opponent didn't kill him. Cool. He now holds it. He stickies it. He can now fly off it into our opponent's lines. Go and cause absolute chaos. Probably the strongest attachment. Probably just like not even questionable. Like if you want to run Mortarion the most competitive way, I think VV is probably the best way to go about it. That being said, there is an argument for Taliban summoners. Inside Taliban summoners, you can make really disgusting high toughness skew lists. Great Unclean ones, for example, are going to be toughness 13 due to their own aura. Rotagus is toughness 12, can be 13 if he's near one of these bad boys. And if you bring a bunch of those guys and a Mortarion, it's very easy to make a list that is basically, here is 5 models of toughness 12/13, 4 up invulnerable. Hope you brought anti-tank, because if you don't, enjoy wounded on 6s. Really, really strong list. Very skewed. Obviously, if they have brought a bunch of anti-tank, you're probably not going to have a great time. But if they haven't, you're going to have a blast because they're just not going to be able to kill you. Is a slight weakness in that one is that Mortarion's abilities cannot affect the demon units. So you will have to make sure you either use them on himself or bring alongside some Death Guard units still to make the most out of his actual rules. But in this detachment, we're more looking at Mortarion as a stat line than rather as his rules. It's also one of the only ways to access reroll hit rolls for Mortarion, because as long as he's in engagement with a demon unit and himself and an enemy unit, he can spend a command point to get full rerolls to hit. So 15 sweep attacks, full rerolls to hit, sustained lethal, that gets pretty spicy pretty quickly. You ain't dropping a single dice now. Really, really good. And then last but not least, Deathlord's Chosen can be really interesting. Death Guard Dave has been pioneering this for quite a bit. You can make a really disgusting mortal wound spam list, because again, Mortarion pulses mortal wounds. In the command phase, you can make him take mortal wounds. The Terminators can put out mortal wounds. He's got grenades for mortal wounds. You can bring along Typhus as well, mortal wounds. Maybe a cheeky Plague Burst crawler on home, mortal wounds. And then, you know, it's just, here's a bunch of mortal wounds. It's really fun. It's not the most competitive in sort of the mortal wound spam sense, but he also brings a lot of ability for the Terminators to get a lot of value. Terminators normally being quite slow once they've dropped in. Now you have access to give them reactive moves. Also, you can make the most disgusting anti-melee army in the game, because Deathlord's Chosen has Fight on Death 4 up as a stratagem, and then Mortarion can give another unit Fight on Death 2 up. So if your opponent charges you, you can be like, cool, that squad fights and Death on a 4 up, that squad fights and Death on a 2 up. You literally can't trade against me because I will always kill you back. Really, really funny. And it also makes a horrendous 4+ invulnerable skew, because you can make an entire army of Terminators, all of which rocking a 4-up invulnerable, and there's Mortarion with a 4-up invulnerable. Just again, you basically become custodians at this point. Just roll 4-ups, and if you roll 4-ups hot, your opponent just can't physically win, and then they'll probably cry about you on Reddit and probably try and get you banned from the store. But hey, Sodom, it was funny. So yeah, these are some interesting attachments for Mortarion. Wouldn't really recommend him in like Champions and Contagion, because it's all about attached characters and he doesn't count as that, so he doesn't get any benefits there, as well as taking up a lot of the points there. Mortarion's hammer doesn't really do anything for Old Mortimer either. Again, it only affects vehicles and not monsters. Now, Shamble Rot, there is something to be said about reactive moving bunch of zombie hordes, but that's something we've got to look into in the future. But these are 3 that sort of stand out to me as probably being the best. But Virulent Vectorium is just so far and ahead the best for Mortarion. It is crazy good for him. So, just before we go to Tabletop, Aiden, I just want to talk about Mortarion's roles in the game. And the truth is, people often ask, oh, well, what's Mortarion's role? The reality is, it depends. And I can't spell depends, apparently. I've missed an E. But it depends on the game to game. And this is the way you need to start looking at the game if you really want to start getting better at it. I'm still learning this. Like, still, it's not just like me bragging. I'm still learning this myself. The more you play, the more you realize plans can be set in stone, and that's great. But the true thing that makes you become a good player is being able to look at a situation, assess it, and react accordingly. And the same is true for Mortarion. So when you play Mortarion, consider the following. How easy can the opponent actually kill Mortarion? Because if the answer's super easy, you're probably not going to put Mortarion out that easily. You're probably going to have to keep him hidden and sort of like, you know, be careful where you position him. Maybe you consider putting him in Deep Strike, you know, do a rapid ingress, because then he's guaranteed going to get a charge and get some value out of him. And then you can look where your opponent's highest damage dealing units are, dodge around them a little bit, try and get the drop on them before they get a drop on you. So these are considerations that you need to take into place. There's also a question of, can you play it for late game? Have you got second turn now? If you've got second turn and it looks like you can outlast your opponent, well, if you play for late, Mortarion being alive turn 4 and 5, or even turn 3, and being really healthy could be a massive problem for your opponent, especially if they've already lost, you know, 1 or 2 of their key units and there's still a full health Mortarion around. Can you get to a point in the game where Mortarion is basically unstoppable? Like, no one can touch him, at which point he can then just go and claim an objective, kill everything nearby, and then push into your opponent's deployment and just be like, I'm coming for your homeboy, you best think you can do something. But they can't, because you played it late game. You waited for the opportunity and then maximized it. Another thing to consider is, what has more value in this game? Is it going to be Mortarion's rules? Like, is reactive move or fight on death really strong here? Like, you're against World Eaters. The reactive move, you can get away from being charged. You can guarantee fight on death. That's going to be really good in that matchup. But sometimes, that's not the case. Sometimes, when you actually look at the terrain and stuff, the reactive move, there's not really anywhere you can really reactive move to. The shoot back is not really going to work because they've brought a bunch of really deadly units, so it's unlikely your unit's going to survive if it gets shot. And fight on death, I don't know, maybe you're against Tau and you're just never going to fight on death. So, in which case, maybe then we look at Mortarion's value as a stat line. So instead, ignore the rules and go, okay, well, how easy can my opponent deal with a toughness 12, 2 up, 4 up, 5 up feel no pain model with 16 wounds? If the answer is not easy, then Mortarion can become quite a bully. You can deploy him aggressively, get into your opponent, force your opponent to commit. Can you force an interaction? That last point there. Can you force them to come out? Because if your opponent has to expose 800 points of all their most deadly units to just kill Mortarion, and you know in your heart, if they do that, you can then kill all that in return and then run away with the game, then Mortarion actually becomes a distraction card effects. He becomes a bully unit. He just stands there. He goes, rah, I'm a big distraction. You have to deal with me or I will come and punch you to death. And then they try and deal with him, and sometimes I've seen Mortarion just bounce 4-ups, and then suddenly the bugger also gets to live. And then the game's truly in your favour, because not only have they failed to kill Mortarion, but then you get to punish them really heavily. So think about all these things when you're going to use Mortarion. How easy can they kill him? How hard is it for them to kill him? What happens if Mortarion is alive in the late game? Has Mortarion going to get use out of his rules, or shall I use him more as a stat line? Because these are also going to influence where you deploy him and things like that. And again, we'll cover that in Tabletop Aiden section. But I just want you to think about this a little more as we get into the Tabletop section, which I'm going to pass over right now, over to Tabletop Aiden to think about it. But again, just things to consider, because Mortarion's role in your army will change game to game. So don't get too dead set in one way of playing Mortarion. Always look at your opponent, look at what they've got, and react accordingly. Anyway, I'm going to pass you over to Table Aiden. See you in a second. Well, probably more than a second. Couple minutes. Definitely a couple minutes. Alright guys, welcome to the TTS section of this tactics and how to play Mortarion video. As you can see, we've got Mr. Big Mortarion there himself right in front of us. And we are going to, well, first of all, we're going to lock in our secondaries and just get rid of this nonsense at the bottom. Yeah, sure thing. Go away. There you go. It's already gone from the bottom. So we're going to be looking at some tricks we can do with Mortarion here. We're going to be using Tabletop Simulator. This is an application on Steam that people can basically use to play 40k virtually. We're going to be using this to sort of just showcase some examples, because it's a lot easier than me getting it physically out on a table, getting the camera set up out, all that stuff, and it's a bit clearer for you guys as well. So loaded up here, we've got a sort of standard GW terrain. Not sure what layout it is. It's search and destroy something, because we don't really use it in the UK, but I know it's very popular in America, etc. So I'm going to show you an example just on here of some of the tricks Mortarion can do. So one of the things we can often see when we use Mortarion is when we have to deploy Mortarion. So when we deploy Mortarion, basically the way we look at it is, again, you have to ask yourself the questions of how Mortarion is going to fit into a game. Now, your default positioning for Mortarion basically wants to be somewhere around the center where he's going to have the most impact. So realistically, if I'm looking at this now, I'm looking at putting Mortarion probably here, right behind here, so he can't get shot. And again, if they've got barely any shooting, feel free to deploy more aggressively like this. Obviously be careful for charges, turn 1, stuff like that. But don't be afraid to put something here like this If they've not got much shooting, you can obviously rotate for free. So you can dodge like that angle down there, which means the only way you're going to get shot is straight through the middle. But let's say we need to be a bit more normal deployment here. We can just put him behind here. Now behind this position, I know Mortarion can move out. He's 6 here. You can then move 4 up. Again, pivots are completely free on your wings because you're around base monster. And then if you advance, as long as you get a 2, you're pretty much going to clear that building. And then that little lip, and there you go. That's a really good position to be in, fairly safe from everything. Again, you can rotate your wings to cut this angle here a bit tighter. And from this position, Mortarion is basically looking to tuck into here right now. Because in this position, Mortarion has the ability to play outwards, so you can play aggressively and get onto the middle whenever you want to. You also have the ability to use your abilities, your reactive move, etc. like that, to influence a lot of things that are going on. So for example, one trick I want to look at first, and this is just ways we can start looking at how we can use Mortarion's cheeky reactive move. So one other thing we can do when it comes to deployment is actually bake in the reactive move into sort of our thought process here. So one thing you might often see happen is, now it's not going to show that well on here, but let's say this is a sort of different deployment and we have a different map layout, for example. But we can often have a position where Mortarion can deploy a bit more forward, so maybe it's like, again, more UKTC based, these kind of things, but it's fine, we can do it here actually. What we can do is we're going to get Mortarion there, we're going to get some Poxwalkers here, and we are going to put our Poxwalkers in a dog bone formation to get the maximum coherency out of them, and we're going to do it in a rather strange way, not strange particularly, but we want to make sure that we are within 6 inches of Mortarion, because again we need to make sure that we're in 6 inches so that we can trigger the reactive move. Make sure a lot of pre-measuring needs to be done when you're playing Mortarion to sort of make sure that you're always in range for these things. So with this, as you can see here, we've now got an infiltrated unit of Poxwalkers that are spread right across the middle over here. Now Mortarion is fairly safe over there. Again, I'm not going to be too worried about him getting shot, because if they want to put something here to move out and shoot him, then I'm going to get to retaliate, and it's very unlikely the one unit they put here is going to be able to one-tap Mortarion in cover at that range. So I have deployed Poxwalkers, pretty stupid. Now if I'm playing Virulent Vectorum, I get first turn, they sticky these objectives. Brilliant. Like that's all well and dandy. That is great. We love that. We then move behind the wall, or we can go move block, whatever. We're not looking at that. What if we don't get first turn? Well, let's say our opponent is playing some Blood Angels. We always like to use Blood Angels here. They've got some scouts themselves. They got some, I don't know, they got this fight first brick. Now a very common thing for people to want to do on their first turn is to stage. So it's quite common for someone to want to get either behind this L here, or somewhere just in a terrain feature in the middle. So like these fight first blade guard, their ideal home is obviously going to be somewhere in here. So maybe your opponent's deployed them behind this wall. Now here's the question your opponent has to ask though. If these guys want to get to a staging position, they move in advance. If at any point they finish their move within 9 of these Poxwalkers, and again we could have actually spread these way more out, like up herewards, like that. So again, like that'd easily trigger it. So if they move forward like this, we can then know that because we've deployed like this, again, just use something a little bit close to a Mortarion, there we go, just to make sure everyone's in coherency and within range of Mortarion, they can then trigger your reactive move. And if you've pre-measured it, I know in this instance, I've measured it in such a way that I can 100% get to safety. So these guys have come forward, triggered it. Now remember, the triggering is not limited to Mortarion's range. As long as the initial unit is within 6, not 6.1, just pretend that's a 6, of Mortarion, this unit can have its reactive move triggered from all the way over here. As long as this unit finishes within 9 of the Poxwalkers, who are within 6 of Mortarion, you can reactive move. So in this instance, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to have my Poxwalkers reactive move 5 inches, and they're all going to come just behind this wall. Again, just make sure I'm very, very fast and loose on measuring here. So imagine he was like a you know, 0.3 of an inch closer. Here, these guys can all come up here like this, up here. He can just hop behind the wall there. These guys can also pull in then like that, and just like that, voila. Pull it a bit down. There you go, voila. We've used the 5-inch reactive move to dodge our Poxwalkers, 1 being charged or shot here, 2 being charged or shot here. but we allowed us to make a turn 1 play where if we would have potentially gotten first turn, we could have then, if again Virulent Vectorum or something like that, we could have got a double sticky there. And normally you would take that risk at the the chance that you get second turn and you lose a unit of Poxwalkers for free. But in this instance, us positioning Mortarion here at the get-go on the deployment and making sure our Poxwalkers were in 6 inches of them has allowed us to reactive move and dodge this happening. Now, there's other tricks we can use reactive move for, and I'm just going to start going through them because there's quite a lot. So, other things reactive move can do. Here is a Rhino. Mortarion has come to the middle. I'm just going to get rid of deployment zones. There we go. So, Mortarion is in his happy place here. He's chilling, he's vibing, he's having a good time. Now, what I'm going to do is I've got a Rhino full of Plague Marines here. Now, these Plague Marines really want to come out and shoot someone. Now, I, at the same time, have been real cheeky, and I've brought along this Demon Prince here. And for the sake of it, I'm just going to grab a Tallyman. You'd normally be Poxwalkers or something. Let's just say, I don't know, this guy here. This Lord of Poxes, for some reason, is going to stay within 3 inches of this Demon Prince behind this wall. And he's going to give him loan up. So this Demon Prince is now, like, unshootable. So I've put the Demon Prince on the objective. I am now going to get out 10 Plague Marines out of this Rhino. And they're going to be, I don't know, shooting whatever. Say my opponent had some guys on the point. Some scouts or anything I want. I'm going to come out, I'm going to do some damage, I'm going to kill some guys, whatever it is I want to do. So these guys hop out the Rhino, they all come out, they all have a good time, they shoot, bang, bang, bang. 1 CP again, Virulent Vectorum, 4 rolls to hit and wound, happy days. Now, my opponent, I'm actually not even going to go on the objective here. Maybe my opponent's got bonuses if you want an objective, I'm not going to let them do that. So all I care about is, again, I keep 1 model within 6 of Mortarion here. So, my opponent has a choice here. So, they need to take this objective off me. Now, they can't shoot the Demon Prince. They can't shoot him because they've loan upped him. So, again, unless they want to get really close, but again, obviously that's good for you. So, this Demon Prince is nicely safe and loan upped. Which means, if my opponent wants to get onto the objective, realistically, again, say this isn't a melee army, again, pretend this is like guard or tower or something. I'm just using these models because they're here. Let's do some scouts instead. So, say these scouts are here. So these scouts have been behind this building, tucked in nice and tight. So naturally, my opponent is going to want to take this primary off me here. But to do so, he's either going to have to kill this really tough Demon Prince, this toughness 12, 2 up save, 4 up invulnerable, 5 up feel no pain. Realistically not going to happen. So normally what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to just put OC on it and out OC it. Obviously, they'll be scared of the Overwatch and stuff, but that's a different question. Let's just say that I can't Overwatch for some reason. Like, it's elves. Pretend this is elves and they turn off my Overwatch. The problem is, by doing this, my opponent can then trigger my reactive move. And if you don't know, if you think a reactive move counts as a normal move. So if I reactive move my Plague Marines 5 inches, and I manage to get all of them to be wholly within 3 inches of the Rhino, which is very much doable here. Happy days, yep. Then what we can actually do is at the end of that reactive move, we can re-embark the Rhino. So what you can do here is you can have Plague Marines hop out, shoot, force them to come and out OC or something. Because if they don't, if they just kill the Plague Marines, you hold primary. Happy days. Or you force them to put all the guns here, and then you don't get to shoot your Plague Marines. Because again, this guy's really tough and hard to kill. So this can also work just with Mortarion himself. Again, you put Mortarion on the point. Again, he's probably going to have to eat all the guns if they want to out OC you on it. Even better if you can put Mortarion smack bang on the center of the objective, because then it becomes even harder to tow on because of his size of his base. And again, the same thing, you can have Plague Marines nearby. And if these, if they want to try and out OC Mortarion, they're either going to have to, send off like 2 squads for 1t6 OC. But if they send anywhere near close, if they've got, melter guns or anything like that, and they need to come out from behind this wall and fire at you, you can trigger plenty of reactive moves and get inside and out of this Rhino constantly over and over. Because you got to remember, if you're going to try and get a reactive move to trigger, the best bet for you is to take up as much of the board as you can. So these guys, when they got out, can actually be like out here, out here, out here, because your opponent has to play the game still. Like, they have to be moving around, they have to be, scoring secondaries. And the best way to do it is to try and get to deny primary. Like, someone wants to, have a unit run from behind this wall to deny primary. So as long as you make sure you've got a guy who's within 9 of most of that objective, if they go to do it, they'll trigger it. A lot of people want to get stuff behind this wall here because it's a good staging point. Just make sure that that's always going to be within 9 so you can trigger it. And every single time you trigger this, you're going to get a lot of value from being able to hop in and out of a rhino, for example. So that's going to be, again, another really powerful trick for you to use with Mortarion. The rhino hopping. Now, another cool one that you can also do is, here is my absolute goober of a Mortarion, and I am being a cheeky devil. I've got my little 10 Poxwalker boys in here. There's just chilling against the wall, like that. And I've got Mortarion here. So my opponent is got his Blade Guard, and he's given them all the bells and whistles. They got all the bells and whistles. I'm playing against a melee opponent, and he's going to come fly. He's going to go 7 on inches out, like to there. He is now within 9 inches of Mortarion. So, again, I mean, this is pretty straightforward. I could just go backwards like that, yeah? I could just go backwards. Like, super easy. But let's say, for example, let's make this a bit more interesting. Let's say Mortarion, for some reason, is caught in combat with this Redemptor. So Mortarion cannot make a normal move if you're in engagement, because that would count as a fallback move, and you can only make a normal move. So they think they've got Mortarion here. They're like, haha, Mortarion, you are pinned. We are coming for thy booty. Well, what I'm going to do is you can actually then reactive move these Poxwalkers, who can then come out and make a nice big wall of move blocking goodness. So now, because these guys can't fly, there is no way for them to be able to get into engagement with Mortarion. He's just out of an inch of that Redemptor there. Because my guys have blocked it. So they can't charge. They can't get through that gap because I've move blocked it. Like they physically can't fit. So he can't go there. Which means if these guys want to charge Mortarion, they would have to go through their own Dreadnought and clear the base. So they're probably looking now from what was, a 6-inch charge has now become an 11-inch charge because they've got to get past the Redemptor and all the way around the side and maintain coherency. So even if this one guy makes it and this guy can't, they can't finish that charge because this guy would need to be able to finish like here to maintain coherency. So it's still like an 11-inch charge. So this reactive move here has actually been used to block an incoming charge. So you basically, even though Mortarion couldn't run away, because that's the simple play, normally you just run away when someone's going to charge you. Instead, we brought something out that's gotten in the way of a charge that was coming in, which is, again, a really cool little play you could do there. Now, another even cooler one here that you can even do, and again, well, same scenario. So let's say these Blade Guard are obviously pretty damn good. They can chop up Poxwalkers pretty easy. They're not very good into Mortarion. They're only like strength 5. Because let's just say they're not going to be playing the Red Thirst, maybe they're playing Angelic Inheritors. So you have a bunch of Poxwalkers on this point here, and you have Mortarion nearby. So Mortarion's there. So these guys are like, okay, I know what I'll do is I'll come in, I'll chop up the Poxwalkers, and I'll do it in such a way that Mortarion can't heroic unless he can fly all the way over me, because they'll just finish the charge in a weird way, where basically they go like that, and now for Mortarion to get a heroic, he has to get over them and clear them, so he'd have to roll an 11 on a heroic. So realistically, not going to happen. So what instead I'm going to do is I'm going to reactive move the Poxwalkers. Now remember, interesting thing about Poxwalkers is their base is less than 1 millimeter. So I'm actually going to do, I'm going to come back and I am going to hump Mortarion. I'm going to absolutely, you can go through your model because it's an infantry model and it's a normal move. So I'm going to instead have every single Poxwalker pull back and hump the living shit out of their primarch. Because what this means now, so once I get them all there, there we go, cool, happy days, should be all good now. So every single Poxwalker is going to come back and literally lick Mortarion's feet. Because what this means now is, because their base is less than 1 inch, if they go to base, that Poxwalker, they're within 1 inch of Mortarion. Which means to charge the Poxwalkers legally, they also have to declare Mortarion. Which means Mortarion will be in combat and will then get to kill them. Because he will get to swing. So these guys will literally charge in to the Poxwalkers, put themselves in engagement range of 1 inch of Mortarion. They'll obviously swing, they'll obviously kill the Poxwalkers, but then Mortarion will get a chance to swing back. So you can actually deter charges with Poxwalkers by putting them in base to base with Mortarion, because doing so makes the 1 inch an engagement area bubble around him that they can't physically avoid. because when they have to charge, they have to make base to base if possible. So if they can base to base a Poxwalker, that means they're in engagement range of Mortarion. And they can't declare a charge against the Poxwalker and not Mortarion because, well, Mortarion exists. So, very cool. Little trick you can do there to get another little bit of work out of the old Mortarion there. Now, something else cool that Mortarion can also do with this reactive move nonsense. If you reread the reactive move actually says in either player's turn. It's just in a turn. So what this actually means is this is one of the weird instances in the game, one of the only very few I actually know of, where you can actually reactive move to a reactive move. So let's say Mortarion's behind this wall here. Now quite a common play is for an opponent to put something like this stupid lone op lieutenant guy who has a reactive move on an objective. So he's going to put him here like this. He's going to be like, haha, because what this does now is it forces you to either stand here and then he'll just reactive move behind the building. You can't shoot him. And then, or if you don't come out at all, he's going to hold primary. So again, he's forcing you to trigger his reactive move, just like we said before. But what Mortarion can actually do is this. Mortarion can move over just onto the terrain there. Just like that. Which, again, just make sure you don't move over 5. As long as you don't move over 5, you are more than fine to get back to where you came from. Your opponent then goes, haha, I run away. And then as long as he finishes that move within 9 inches of you, which he is there, easily, then you can, when he finishes that normal move, you can then trigger Mortarion to reactive move to that and hop back safely behind the wall. Now that's one instance of using this. What's even funnier is when you find a way to use it against your opponent. So let's do this now. Let's say there is five dudeskies. 5 dudeskies behind this wall here. Just like this. 5 little dudes. Happy days. And then we're going to have that, was that Redemptor or Vindicator? That's not a Vindicator. So a cheeky Vindicator. He's been an absolute menace. He's poked out here. He's been shooting down. Doing our annoying. So what I'm going to have Mortimer do here is I'm going to have old Mortimer. He's really annoyed at this thing. So he's going to fly out. He's going to fly out his 10 inches to here. He's going to fly out his 10 inches there. My opponent then goes to do his little D6 reactive move with whatever unit he's got. Just because, I don't know, maybe he was against the wall. Or maybe he was out here move blocking or something. Yeah, say he was trying to move block something. So he's like this. He then reactive moves behind the wall. You can then trigger Mortarion and actually chase further 5 inches. So I've actually now used it to get an extra 5 inches. So I've gone from what was a 13-inch charge to now a 7-inch charge. Sorry, a 12-inch charge to a 7-inch charge. Which is, you know, obviously massive. So you can actually bait people's reactive moves to get additional movement out of it. And this can be used in all sorts of manners of like absolute nonsense. Again, this can be used in combination. So you can have this happen. You can go, this is where it gets really fucking stupid now. So I can have my Plague Marines down here. Say they were here last turn, or they've just, you know, they've just blasted something out like that. They've got out, they've disembarked into here. These scouts were, I don't know, like something like this here. Mortarion's over here like this. So I'm going to move out Mortarion to here onto the point. They're then going to reactive move behind the wall. That still then ends within 9 of the Plague Marines, who I've made sure are within 6 of Mortarion. So now those guys can actually 5-inch move beyond the wall, shoot these guys all to death, and then go and charge this Vindicator. So you can set up like a 1-2 trigger of scenario, because Mortarion moves, triggers a reactive move, then that reactive move finishes within 9 of another unit that is within 6 of Mortarion to trigger his reactive move, and then you can go forward and do this. And you can do this even to get back into a Rhino if you want to. So, like, you know, if you've done that, and then it's great because you can, like, again, you hop out the Plague Marines to shoot something in here. They go, haha, no thanks, reactive with your roll 6 and get out of the way. You go, cool, that's fine with me, reactive move, get back inside my Rhino safely behind the wall. Like, loads of little plays that can be done like this, which are just kind of crazy powerful. Allow you to chase things on reactive moves, allow you to reactive move away from charge, allow you to reactive move. Like, another one, lone up. Like, let's have a look here. So we got this lone up boy here. Your opponent brings out some guns to shoot him. You know, they're 12 inches like that, and then suddenly, you know, they rock up here with some scouts, trigger within 9. You go, cool. I'm just gonna casually reactive move away, just outside of 12 inches again. So now I'll put you to 12.1 inches after the reactive move. Let's have a look. There's 11.9, so we go back there. So there you go, triggered, done. So he was like here, for example. I don't know where he'd be blown up. Maybe there's a guy behind this wall with like a lot of pockets or something. And again, silly scenarios, but you get the point what I'm trying to prove here. These guys come out, trigger his reactive move. This Vindicator's looking like he wants to shoot him. He's only 9 inches away. Juicy, num num num. Now he reactive moves 5 inches backwards away from everything. He can even go this way. He doesn't have to go towards Mortarion, remember. He's going to go away there. Still within 3 inches for the blown up. And can no longer be shot by this Vindicator at all. So he just baited out this Vindicator completely here. Loads and loads of tricks like that Mortarion can do. You probably even find more yourself as you play, but it's just really, really cool to see like all these little things that you can do. Also, yeah, there's just crazy stuff. There's all sorts of craziness. And don't forget, Poxwalkers can get back in Rhinos. So I have reactive moved Poxwalkers who are like doing something like maybe ringing an objective, back near an empty Rhino and embarking in it just to keep them alive for another turn if someone was coming to kill them. Like, there's all sorts you can do there. Now, another thing that Mortarion has obviously shoot back. Now, the shoot back itself is not the craziest thing in the world. The shoot back is good in instances where, for example, against Eldar, when they have Aspect Host and they have like 10 Fire Dragons and they have this stratagem where at the end of their fight phase, of any fight phase, including their own, they can re-embark in a transport. So quite often what you'll see is, again, just imagine this Rhino as a Falconus or a Wave Serpent behind a wall. The Fire Dragons will get out on the other side of the wall. I know these Scouts can become 5 Fire Dragons for this turn. They'll shoot something, and with no Overwatch, they'll turn up Overwatch. They'll be like, yep, you're not Overwatching us today because of the battle focus. And at the end of the turn, they'll just hop back inside that Falcon and be super safe. Really annoying. What you can do is put like 10 Blightlord Terminators on this middle point, or even some Death Shroud Terminators, for example. Let's put some Death Shroud down there. You go, some Death Shroud. Death Shroud on this point here, like Bop. Can't Overwatch them when they come out, because unfortunately you can't. But then they go to shoot you. You go, okay, cool, I will use my shoot back. Maybe they kill 1, maybe they kill 2. But then before they get a chance to re-embark inside this Rhino at the end in the fight phase, you get to shoot back and kill them all. So again, that's happy donkey dory days. So the shoot back itself is pretty good for that, but it's not the best thing in the world. Now, another thing that you can do as well, most of the tricks doing Mortarion are really the reactive move. But there's obviously this fight on death as well. If you have a 2-up fight on death, that's going to be really good. One fun thing to do is if you do a Berserker Mortarion, where you send him into the middle of your opponent's army, you kill something, they charge you. So like your Blood Angels, they charge you. If they kill him, you can 2-up fight on death yourself, and then if you're in Virulent Rectorum, you can, after you fought on death, auto-explode. So you can, you know, get 15 sweep attacks into this Blade Guard, and then treat him to D6 mortal wounds at the end of it as well, which is obviously a nice little treat for your opponent to have there. Now, when it comes to actually away from the tricks of Mortarion and sort of understanding Mortarion's role in the game, like I said, you're mainly looking to have him in areas where his rules are going to have the most impact, which is like around the middle, around here. But certain matchups, I want you to be aware, certain matchups struggle to kill Mortarion. Now, if that's the case, Mortarion's role changes from being like the central bit here, like central anchor point. Because then again, if you're playing late game as well, remember, if he survives most of the game and he's got value out of reactive moves, turn 3 or something, you can bring him out after the opponent's lost some of their big things, and he's going to be much harder to deal with. But if you're in a game where you can bully, let's put up these deployment zones here. Let's go back to search and destroy, because what normally is. There we go. So if I'm against an army that I know is going to struggle to kill Mortarion, I'm actually not going to look to put Mortarion back here. Because if they're going to struggle to kill him, I might actually just get more value out of Mortarion looking at him like a stat line. So if you actually look at Mortarion deploying down here, then you will actually be able to be a lot more aggressive with him. Now, just while we're here very quickly as well, just need to clarify something with Mortarion. If Mortarion is like this, there is a rule that says overhanging bits of a model that are over the base and over terrain do not count for line of sight. So this wing right now, even though it is clearly inside this terrain, because the base is not, that cannot be used for line of sight for you or for your enemy to shoot at. Now obviously this wing here, this like an angle this way, that obviously can be shot because it's not going through terrain. But do be aware, if this wing, or if even the base was to touch, now it's visible. And if the wing, so for example, let's go this way, if the wing actually pokes through the other side, so you can see it goes through the terrain, but it pokes through the other side here, that's once again fair game to get shot and back at. But if you're like this, and you're just overhanging your scythe and your wing, that wing and scythe cannot be shot, so just be aware of that. Now, as I was saying, back to deploy. I would actually, in games where Mortarion stat line is a big problem for my opponent, on this map, for example, I will be actually looking to put Mortarion more out in the open. This is also good against melee matchups where there's not many guns. You can be a little more three-way deploy Mortarion, because if you manage to get Mortarion to somewhere like here, for example, against an army that's going to be struggling with him, this is a lot of pressure to put your opponent under. So you can go easily from behind here, with a, again, just get a little advance just to get up there, like a 1-inch advance. Because from there, if you look from your opponent's side, how do they deal with Mortarion here? The only guns that can shoot him have to get down this way, or like all the way through. And again, we're already assuming this is a matchup where they're going to struggle to kill him. Maybe against Genestealer cults and they're all in reserves. Now, Genestealer cults can kill Morty, but if they're all starting a lot in reserves, it might be good if you get first turn to just get super aggro and just throw Morty forward, because you need to get on top of your opponent quickly. And from this point, Morty's then 3 to come and challenge their natural expansion over here and basically be a nightmare. I always find that when I play matchups, if it's a balanced matchup and my opponent has the ability to deal with Morty, he always tends to hang around the centre. But if I'm in a matchup where I want to bully or use Mortarion aggressively, I always seem to deploy him on flanks. Just seems to be like something that always seems to be like working the best for me. So just bear that in mind when you do play Mortarion as well. You might want to play him on the flanks or on the centre. But a good way that also I've seen work is if you have two large threats, some people like to split them up, because then you make your opponent deal with either Mortarion or like the Demon Prince with Lone up here. But it also likes keeping them together at the same time, because again, if you look at this scenario here, you can have Mortarion ready to give this guy, you know, reactive moves and whatnot to hop behind the wall or keep him in Lone up range, and he's going to be able to feed Mortarion, you know, free stratagems, CP reduction for -1 damage. So keeping them together is a very common thing as well. Now, there's tons and tons and tons that is good about Mortarion in this scenario. I just wanted to show you some of the actual tricks you could use to get the most out of like the movement, but mainly the reactive move, because the reactive move is the kind of the grossest part. So hopefully I've managed to teach you a few things there. And again, just always think when you're playing Mortarion, how do you play him? Do you play him aggressive and early? And these are only questions that are going to get answered by playing against certain matchups, understanding how it's gone, how it's going to go. Like, can you get away? How much can Mortarion tank? But one thing I will say is, don't be afraid of using Mortarion as a distraction sometimes. He's not as cheap as he used to be, so you can't throw him away so freely. But if you're in a game where, for example, you've got this big scary Rhino of Death behind here, you've got this big 6-man Death Shroud squad in here, and your opponent has like 2 scary things that can kill big things, and they bring them both out, because again, I've put Mortarion here, I'm basically saying, deal with it. And if they bring out the big things like this, maybe they got another Vindicator somewhere like this, as long as you can get him into a position where making them commit to kill Morty, and again, he might live because it's before up him, but as long as you can sort of jump back and really punish them, so again, these hop out, these shoot this one of these to death, Death Shroud drop in, kill someone else, then Mortarion can sometimes also be used as a bait tool. So Mortarion, the best way to summarize it, he's a bit of everything. Sometimes he's a bait, sometimes he's an anchor, which is like over here, where he's anchoring your lines and playing for late game. Sometimes you've got him being used aggressively forward like this. Sometimes he's a bully unit and playing really aggressively on the flanks, trying to get onto your opponent's natural, kill him off it. And sometimes he even goes in reserves, because the cool thing about having a Primarch in reserves is because your opponent doesn't really know where he's going to come in. So if you look at it and your opponent's got like maybe one unit that can deal with Mortarion, I don't know, say they've got this thing here, whatever this is, say this is, I don't know, 6 Ultra Mega Death Squad Super Killer 9000s, and they've deployed them and then they move them down here. If you look at your opponent's army and you're like, that is the only threat to Mortarion, that might be a good game to put in reserves, because the second this unit has moved down here, this Super Mega Death Squad, I'm going to bring him in up here, because then, if that's the only thing that can hurt Mortarion, I'm going to go on a fucking rampage. I'm going to go take the home objective. And again, if they then want to bring this unit back to come and deal with Mortarion, so they're only answer for him, that's brilliant. Because as soon as they start moving away from there, you know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to go start applying pressure there. Because then this guy's like, oh god, do I go back to where I came from and clear that up now? Or do I go back and deal with Mortarion? And you catch him in a sort of no-win situation. So, I hope these little tricks have been helpful for you. I hope you've managed to learn a few things to do with Mortarion's reactive move, where you can re-back transports, wrap people, block moves, block charges, all sorts of little things here. And oh, that's another one. God, I'll bloody cover it now. Sorry, I'm very unscripted, but it's how I always do my videos. I've always been unscripted. I actually did this the other day. So I had Mortarion here, and I had my my opponent had a Rhino. It wasn't this exact map, but again, the situation is just like sort of the same. So essentially, there's a Rhino here, and I had some Poxwalkers just behind this wall here. And he was going to make a play to come and basically shoot Mortarion. So he drove his Rhino the best he could. He got him to he got to here. And then basically he wanted to obviously unload his guys to, and Mortarion was like that actually. He was more spun around. So he came to drive there. So he obviously wanted to get his guys out of his Rhino and shoot Mortarion. So instead what I did is I reactive moved the Poxwalkers and actually, so they were a bit more spread out than that. They were more like all the way around Mortarion here like this. And I reactive moved them as the Rhino finished its move, because again, disembark is not part of the move, it's after. So I have a chance to react. I actually reactive moved, and I basically just made a wall of Poxwalkers around his Rhino, because then he basically had no space to disembark onto the terrain. So he could disembark from this side of the Rhino, sure, but then that couldn't shoot anything other than 10 Poxwalkers. So you can actually do things like this to stop people being able to shoot your Primarch or shoot whatever they want to do. Just block space off. And again, you could do, if there's two transports, you know, one's drove up here to come and shoot Mortarion, another one's ready to drive down here to shoot Mortarion. And you can see them setting it up. You just go, cool, reactive move, and instead I'll just pop 2 Poxwalkers in the middle, and now this thing is move blocked. There's so many things you can do with Mortarion, man. There's so many things. He's a really cool model. Like, he's not my thing, because I'm not a centerpiece model kind of person. I prefer MSU trading units, but he's very cool and he's very, very powerful when used correctly. So hopefully you've picked up a few cool tricks here. And yeah, I'm going to pass you back to a presentation, Aiden, who's going to wrap this entire thing up. See you guys. Hey guys, welcome back. Sorry that went on for a little bit. These are always a bit long videos, but hopefully you picked up a cool little trick or two there from Table Aiden. So, in summary, Mortarion is a real build-around model. You either take Morty or you don't take Morty. It's like Marmite. For some people love it, some people hate it. But what he is, he's definitely fits his role as a centerpiece model. He can make massive, crazy plays that you wouldn't have thought anywhere else. Again, we saw a couple examples there that can genuinely flip a game if done correctly, and he has an amazing little stat line to go alongside that. Fantastically scary in both decently shooting, really scary at close combat, especially against infantry, and just a tough little cookie. Practice makes perfect. The more you play with Mortarion, the more you will start to notice the plays you can make with Mortarion. You notice the opportunities for the playmaking, and you'll also start proactively setting up your traps for your opponent to fall into. But again, I played Mortarion a few times, and every single game I was way more clicking with how Mortarion worked. He just sort of gels with you after a few games. You start to go, oh, if I put this here, I can force them to move there, which is then going to force a reactive move, because you kind of start to understand areas your opponent wants to move into, so you'll make reactive move traps, which is really cool. Again, really is all about the reactive move. Fight on Death is really nice to have as well, but the main powerful thing about Mortarion is that reactive move. Being able to chase reactive moves is crazy strong as well. Being able to set up, you know, re-embark transports, get into loan up, block charges. It's easily the most powerful rule on his data sheet. Fight on Death is fantastic still, don't get me wrong, you're going to love it when you need it. Shoot back is niche, and sometimes it works, sometimes you don't need it. But really, it's all about a reactive move. And the more you play, you'll also understand Mortarion's role in a game. And again, this isn't something I can really show you, it just comes down to matchup knowledge. And you'll understand where Mortarion fits in the game, how he works towards the game plan to get a win. And sometimes how, you know, maybe Mortarion has to take a backseat and wait for turn 3 or 4 to sort of get into the game. Or maybe you're against an opponent where Mortarion's literal best role is just get in the face, get killing, and go down early, but take out a nice chunk and force your opponent to react to him as he goes down. And last thing, just remember Morty can die, and sometimes he can die real fucking quick. I've seen Mortimers fall over in a single turn. It's not always happening, don't get me wrong, but dice do be dicing, and sometimes there's a lot of damage in the game at the moment. There's a lot of lethals, there's a lot of sustains, and sometimes rolls can be pretty crazy. A lot of crit 5s as well. So again, you'll only learn this by playing it more, but the more you play Morty, the more you'll understand how much damage you can actually take and how much you can't take. And sometimes you'll live on 1 wound, sometimes you'll die, and like, that's okay, it can happen, but just make sure that if Morty is going to die, you're making your opponent do and be in positions they don't really want to be in to make it happen, and don't throw him away for free. I have seen far too many people new to the game read the books, think Mortarion's unkillable, deploy him on the line in front of the opponent's army, and then he gets shot by 2,000 points turn 1 and dies. He is not invincible, he can die, so just understand that, please, and you will have much more success by being a little bit more cautious with our Primarch. But yeah, that's going to bring us to the end of today's video. Guys, I hope you have managed to learn a little something about Mortarion, a little trick or two. Hopefully that will help you in your enjoyment of the model and getting him on the table and maximising his potential. Thank you to all the amazing Death Shroud members that are on the screen at the moment. You guys, absolute legends, and managed to keep these videos being made, keep the streams going, and keep the lights on here at Disgustingly Resilient. I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate even you, just the watcher. Even if you're not a member, thank you for sticking it through. Sorry it's been a long one. Hopefully it's been worth it though. And thank you to our amazing sponsors that are all on the screen. For now, I'm going to take my leave. I will catch you all on the next episode. Please, if you haven't, leave a like or a subscribe. It really does help, and consider becoming a member. For now though, stay on, take care, get those wins in for Kirby, and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye bye.